Welcome to Infidelity Secret. Your support is everything to us. 90% of you haven't subscribed yet, so please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so we can keep bringing you amazing content. Also, we'd love to know where you're watching from. Leave your city in the comments. Now, let's dive into today's tale. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who'd keep secrets from her husband. That's how all these stories start, right? The person insists they aren't that kind of person. But I wasn't, or at least I didn't think I was. I believed in love, loyalty, and the quiet comfort of a steady life. For 12 years, I was proud of the marriage I had with my husband, Daniel. We were that dependable couple, never too flashy, never too dramatic, just solid, grounded, ordinary in a way that people often admired from afar. But sometimes ordinary isn't enough to hold a person together. And that's something I had to learn the hard way. Daniel and I met in college. He was the classic good guy. Steady, thoughtful, a bit shy. He wasn't the guy who turned heads when he walked into a room, but he had this dependable warmth to him like a lighthouse on a foggy night. I fell for that. I fell hard. While others were dating athletes or ambitious dreamers, I chose the guy who always remembered my coffee order and walked me back to my dorm after late-night study sessions. We married a year after graduation. Life started quickly after that. Jobs, a mortgage, 2 kids, and a dog named Cooper. We built a life that looked beautiful on the outside. Inside, it was comfortable, predictable, and I thought that was enough. I wanted it to be enough, but things started changing slowly, like a crack in a window you don't notice until the cold air starts creeping in. It wasn't any one thing. Daniel didn't turn into someone cruel or unrecognizable. He was still him, kind, responsible, good with the kids. But somewhere along the way, we stopped really seeing each other. He came home from work exhausted, often mentally somewhere else. And I found myself going through the motions. Breakfast, laundry, school pickups, dinner, dishes, sleep, repeat. I kept thinking, this is just a season. We'll find our way back. But weeks became months and months became years. I tried to talk to him. I really did. There were nights I would bring it up gently. I'd say things like, "Do you ever feel like we're just roommates?" And he'd give me a tired smile and say, "It's just been a long week, babe. We'll plan something fun soon." But the soon never came. Life kept moving and we kept drifting. Then came the book club. It was a suggestion from my friend Marissa. She thought I needed something for me, something outside the house, outside the routine. So I joined. Thursday nights once a month, a small group of women, and unexpectedly one man, would meet at a local bookstore cafe. We talked books, drank wine, and shared pieces of our lives. That man's name was Jack. Jack was divorced, probably mid-40s and a bit of an odd fit in the group, but he was charming in a quiet, intelligent sort of way. He didn't dominate conversations. He listened. He made thoughtful observations about the books we read, and occasionally about life. He wasn't flirtatious, not in the way you'd expect, but there was something about the way he made eye contact that made you feel like he was actually listening, actually present. At first, I didn't think much of it. It was nice to talk to someone who seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say, but I wasn't thinking about him outside those meetings. Or at least, that's what I told myself. Then one night, after a heated discussion about a character's choices in a novel, I found myself staying behind a few extra minutes to talk to Jack. It wasn't about the book anymore. It was about life, about marriage, about feeling like you're slowly becoming invisible. He didn't press or pry. He just listened. That became a pattern. Every book club meeting ended with a quiet, lingering conversation. Nothing inappropriate, nothing even remotely suggestive, but it felt like something was blooming underneath. Like a seed that had been planted and was just starting to reach for sunlight. I didn't tell Daniel about Jack, not because anything had happened, but because I knew the why behind it all would be hard to explain. Because I was starting to think about Jack in between meetings. I found myself looking forward to Thursdays. Not for the books, not for the wine, but for the chance to feel seen again. One Thursday, it was raining. Not just a drizzle, a full-blown thunderstorm. Jack offered me a ride home since my car was across the street and I hadn't brought an umbrella. It felt innocent enough, but when I sat in his passenger seat, I noticed how quiet it was, how still. No car seats in the back, no snack wrappers, no evidence of a life that demanded every second of his time. He asked, "Do you ever miss quiet?" And I said, "I miss being seen." That was the first time I felt the lines start to blur. The car ride lasted only 7 minutes, but the silence after I got home was deafening. Daniel was asleep on the couch, TV still glowing, remote loosely in hand. I stood there and watched him, wondering when we stopped sharing real moments, wondering if he would have even noticed if I hadn't come home at all. I never told Daniel the full truth about Jack. Maybe one day I will if it ever feels necessary. But for now, I've made peace with what happened. Not because it was right, but because it was real and it woke me up. And sometimes waking up is the first step toward finding your way home again. A year had passed, a full circle of seasons since that cold, quiet night I sat in the kitchen questioning everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and myself. Daniel and I were still together. The pieces we had shattered weren't glued back perfectly, but they were held together by something stronger than before: honesty. Fragile, uncomfortable honesty that often came wrapped in silence, but eventually led us back to each other. One evening, after the kids had gone to sleep and the dishes were drying in the rack, Daniel sat down beside me and asked a question that caught me completely off guard. Was there ever anyone else? I didn't answer right away. I watched the way his fingers tapped gently against his coffee mug, a quiet rhythm filled with both hope and dread. There was someone I talked to, I admitted, my voice a whisper. Nothing physical happened, but emotionally, yes, I crossed a line. Daniel nodded slowly. He didn't flinch. He didn't accuse. He simply breathed. "Thank you for telling me," he said. "I think I always knew." He reached across the table and took my hand. It wasn't a gesture of ownership. It was a bridge, fragile but real. "We'll be okay," he said, "as long as we keep choosing each other every day." Jack never came back into my life. I think he understood that whatever space we had occupied in each other's hearts had served its purpose. He was the mirror I didn't know I needed, the one that showed me the pieces of myself I had buried beneath motherhood, marriage, and routine. I hope he found someone who didn't need saving, someone who met him where he was, not where they had fallen apart. As for me, I began writing again. Little things at first, journal entries, letters I never sent, thoughts I had once silenced. It felt like reclaiming something, a voice I had almost forgotten I owned. Daniel and I eventually returned to that mountain cabin, the same place where we had first pulled the curtain back on our brokenness. But this time, it wasn't to fix anything. It was to celebrate. We drank coffee on the porch, wrapped in blankets, watching the sunrise. "You still think about him?" Daniel asked, not with bitterness, just curiosity. I nodded. "Not the way you might think. I think about the version of me he helped uncover, and I'm grateful for that." He nodded, understanding without needing more. "I still think about the man I was back then," he said. "How blind I'd become to the woman right in front of me. I'm grateful too, for second chances." And that was the truth. Love isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet reconciliation. Two people choosing, day after day, to stay, to listen, to try again. This story isn't a cautionary tale. It's not about villains or saints. It's about the messy, beautiful, painful ways we grow. About how even the most broken hearts can find their way back, not to what they were, but to something new, something real. If you've ever felt invisible, lost, or unsure of how you became the stranger in your own life, know this: you're not alone, and you're not beyond repair. Sometimes all it takes is the courage to speak, to be seen, to remember that your story isn't over. Not yet.